So here, I'm going to share. You see my screen?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let me just close this. Okay, so yeah, just give you a quick overview. You saw the other video I did in French. So
Yeah,
you,
I like 2 hours ago I was watching already and like trying to get, because my doubt was, I just saw that you did this on Google Sheets, so that's perfect because my Excel is in Spanish and all the formulas, because well.
I hear you. I hear you. No, it is. So it is in English, and that's helpful. So just to give you a quick idea, or for those who might be watching this and didn't see the French one, this is just the tracking sheet that I use with my clients that I train with at a distance, so that they can enter the info in there, and they can also get what we're going to be discussing today is how essentially how to get that drop down with the different exercises, and then make sure that when you change that, then the link changes
You have the
dynamically
link, yeah.
as well. So that it's actually really practical when you program something, so that you can just use drop downs. You don't have to copy paste everything. So
Yeah.
I'll start all the way from the back, from the database, and then work my way into this one and explain why I did things. And what I recommend is that obviously you can see everything, so you'll keep an eye on, for example, the formulas that show up here, and maybe go rewatch the video afterwards. If you don't know how to use a formula, just check it, just enter it on YouTube, just write Google Sheets and then the name of the formula, and that's how I figured it out. There's lots of like tutorial videos on how to use the different functions and the different formulas. So essentially what I have here is a separate file that I called my exercise database as my master file, okay? And so it's separate from all the other tracking sheets for my clients. What I did to begin with, which is not necessary, but I did it like that, I segmented all the exercises into different categories. So we got my locomotion stuff, my light explosive, which is more kind of jumping, plyometrics, and then heavy explosive, which is everything doing with weight, throws, squats, hinge, horizontal push. And so what I did is I have the exercise names and then the link to the YouTube video here. Links that for me, they come, almost all of them come from my YouTube channel because I filmed them all. But if you don't have access to them, you could always link to other videos that you find online. That's not an issue. What I did just for me to simplify myself, I just put those little titles in here so I could actually make sure that because if you have a lot, then it becomes quickly, a bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really big list.
Exactly. So I separated it. And again, you can separate however you want. Those are just the basic ones. Then I got floor dumbbell, bench dumbbell, incline dumbbell, barbell, cable, landmine, machine. And you could, you could have more. So essentially break down all the exercises into whatever categories you want to make for yourself. It doesn't have to be those. And then have your exercise on the left and then your links in the second column. Then what you do is you have a master database, and from here you just copy essentially all the ones from the other side. So here you could see it's the formula is equal indirect, and you can see that I'm taking from the tab called Lookup, right, which is my Lookup here at the bottom, which is the name of my sheet, and exclamation mark, because you have to put that before you put the range. And then the range is A1 to B300, right? And so it's going to take everything from this sheet here,
From the locomotion sheet.
A1 all the way to B300 over here, okay? And so what I did, just to give myself enough room, I allocated 300 rows to each exercise category. So to find the next one, I'm going to have to go to 301 technically, if I did that correctly. So 301, you can see here I did indirect with the next sheet. And again, it imported everything here. This side here doesn't really matter for our conversation today, but so essentially in this master database sheet, I have all the exercises and all the videos that are all compiled in here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in 300, in 300 rows, one
Exactly.
after the other.
So that way, whenever I go in and I want to add more, well, I'm always going to have room to add more here, right? It's unlikely that I'm going to just overflow into the 300 for now. If I get there, I might add a category. I don't know how I'll do. I'll have to fucking rethink my whole thing. But so far, I've got enough room that I can add them as I go, and I've got tons of options. So that's really the first part, and that's a file in and of itself. And that file I don't share with anybody. This is my file. It's my master database, and so everything starts from here. Is that clear so far?
Yeah.
Cool. So now we switch to the other sheet. This sheet for now is just called new client, and when I get a new client, I duplicate this sheet, and so everybody has all the same information in it. So that's my kind of blank template. I have a database tab in here, and so what I did very simply is I imported the range from this other sheet. And if you look, so you can dynamically link sheets between each other. So this here is just between the little thingies. Is simply, if you look up here, is this string right here. If you see it. And so that just gets copied in here. And then I want to take the master database from A1 all the way down to B. And because I want to take this one here, so master database. And so what this function does is it imports everything that's between A and B from this tab in this sheet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty straightforward. You just have to make sure you get the notation properly. That's a double one, and then you got a single one after that. So you just have to make sure that those little things are correct, because otherwise, obviously, if you make one little mistake, it won't work. That's why I'm saying, type import range into YouTube and with Google Sheets next to it, and they'll explain to you how to use the function exactly if you're not sure. Important thing to note is that when you duplicate this sheet and you come back into this database tab, this is not going to appear because you need to allow access. So if you duplicate this, here, I'll do it right now. So you can see, make a copy. That's copy. And if it opens here, then you'll see that I don't actually have access to the database right away. So give me a sec for it to load. Go here, database, and you can see that
it's blank.
It's blank, and it's got a ref here. So you just click on it, and then you just click allow access, and then this gets imported in a few seconds. It should work. It's working on it. Here you go. Okay. So one little thing to keep in mind. Okay, so now we have all our database of exercises and videos that are in the sheet, in the client's sheet, essentially. I have my main movement patterns, or the main categories, let's say, that I used on the other sheet. I have them listed here. Okay, that's an important part, because I'm gonna have to pick from those when I'm, for example, when I'm programming. I want to go into here and then pick which category I want. So for example, I want locomotion here, or maybe let's say I want an explosive exercise here and then a throw. So that then here I got choices of explosive stuff and choices of throws. And so what I want is, from here, I've got the name of my different categories. I'm gonna create a named range with those, right? So are you familiar with those?
Yeah.
Okay, so you go data, named ranges. Yeah, so you can add a range, and so you click on this, select the range. What you call the range is very important. And so those, honestly, this one, I'm not sure what I called it, but for example, or not for example.
Pattern and categories, no? It's in the name?
Yeah, it might have been that one. I didn't actually look properly, so. If I find it, locomotion. This one is not the most important, so I'll leave it on
Yeah,
the side. But it's somewhere in there, and then this is what I'm referencing here. So what I'll do, we'll just talk about that A1 here, right? We've got
okay.
strength 1, A1, which is the first exercise. We'll just focus on this one, and then you can extrapolate to all the other ones. But essentially, this is just a list from range, and you could see D2 to D18, right? Which is, if we go back on the other side, D2 to D18. That's my categories
Yeah,
here. So I just created a drop down with the name of the different categories that I made. So far, so good.
yeah,
Then what I did is I took, then I made this a named range from here until, I guess, 299 or until 300. And this is going to be called, it's important that this named range is named
it's the same name.
exact same name as this. So if you go
Okay,
back, sorry about the, to my name ranges, I'll find the locomotion one. Uh,
there.
Here, you could see that it's taken A2 all the way to A300. You don't even have to take the B's. You just need the range that's here to have the
Okay,
names of the exercises. And I named it exactly with the same letters as what I named it here. And you can see it with the other ones. For example, vertical pull here is VER underscore PULL, and it's case
yeah,
sensitive as well. So make sure that those are the exact same, right? So you've created a
okay,
named range with your categories. You've created a name range for each category that has the list of all the exercises, okay? And then, so what happens here is that here you set up a drop down with the different categories. And then here, what you're going to do, if you look at what it says, it's going to list from range, right? And what I want here it's listing from range K2 through K300, which is, if I go back to here, if I scroll to the right a little bit, I've got my day 1 exercise 1, day 2 exercise 2, all the way down the line here. But essentially what it did, it took K2 all the way to K300 and it pasted it in that column, okay? And so that's essentially the
okay,
list that's going to be available when I go to do the click down and to select my exercises. And this is set up with indirect month, so month slash P1M1 is this tab right here. And you can
okay,
see A56 is actually this drop down that I selected right here, right? So if
okay,
I select explosive light here, then this displays the explosive light named range.
okay,
And then if I change that, if I go and I do locomotion, for example, then this changes to the locomotion named range. Okay, so you're saying I want this to be imported, and this is actually the named range that you created just before. Okay,
okay,
and so you need that. So if I do that on the second one, here you can see I've got some throws on the number 2, right? So if I go back into here, I can see that I've selected throws here. But if I go to squat, now I've got all my squat options that come up here.
okay,
Okay, and so
yeah,
right, and so here what it is just a drop down with all the options from that column right here, or that column right here for the first one. Does that make sense so far?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, so they're just, little steps, and if you follow them, it works. So just don't lose the steps. So now I've selected, for example, crab walk. Okay, and so what I want is for the sheet to pull up the link to the video, and this link is going to be in that B column here, right? For
yeah,
all the exercises that I have in my database. And so what I do is I use this little box here, and I think I made the text white, as you can see here, so that you just can't see it. But otherwise,
yeah,
if I let's say I make it black for a second, and let's say, oh, it's not appearing now, but so the text is there, right? I just hid it by making it white, essentially.
Yeah.
That function is a vertical lookup, and so what this does, it's gonna look at F56 on this sheet. So there's this one here, okay? It's this drop down that I was using to select what exercise I want. So it's looking at this one and it's saying, okay, I'm taking crab walk because that's this one here, crab walk. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at crab walk, and then from the tab database, and I'm going to look from A2 all the way to B8000. Well, that's the range selected, but so it's going to look through this whole range to try and find crab walk. Okay. And
Okay.
if it finds what it wants, it's going to take the second row number 2. So row
Yeah,
1 would be
that have the links on it.
exactly. So A
Yeah.
would be 1, and then B would be 2, right? So it's taken
Okay.
the info that it finds in the second row next to that crab walk. And so what it's doing, it's simply looking in this and it's seeing crab walk, and then it's taking number 2, which is B, and so it's taking this. So it's taking the link.
Okay.
And it's putting the link right here. This is actually a link right here, but it's hidden, right?
Okay.
Because it's in the form of a URL, which is not pretty. And so then here, the last step is to use an if, so that it displays nothing if it's empty.
Yeah, if it's empty. Okay.
So if A57, this one, is empty, then if this is text, if A57 is text, which it is now because it's a URL, then I want to hyperlink to A57.
Okay.
So I'm using that hyperlink in the function here, and then I want the text to be displayed to say video in brackets. So I could change that, right? And I could just say vid, for example, and now I would just say vid. And so that's the text that is going to be displayed with the URL, and then now I can click on this and I have my video here. And so essentially that's the categories, that's the drop down with the different exercises, that pulls up the URL, and that displays the URL in a pretty link for the client to use.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like I've said before, this is just for A1, or for the first one here on this sheet. And then you'll have to do the same for all the ones. So for example, each session I have 12 spots to program or to give exercise. Sometimes I give more, sometimes less, but I gave 12 as a baseline. And so you'll need to do that for, here I have day 2, and here I have day 3, and here I have day 4 at the end. So obviously the more options you want, the more times you'll have to do that, but it's a pretty quick copy paste, and you can get along with that. But I think we went over the main stuff. Do you have any questions so far?
No, just like you say, you have to rewatch the whole thing and go step by step. Been doing something like that in Excel, but maybe because of the formulas or something, I wasn't able to keep some tutorials I check. Maybe because the formulas was in Spanish or the format of the Excel, I don't know.
Okay.
But in Google Sheets, with this, it's gonna be easier. So just has to create my own database that I have over there.
Exactly, and I think the upside of Google Sheets is that it's online, right? So you can share it with your clients, and then
it's easier.
Yeah, like I have all my clients' training sheets here on my phone, right? So at any time I can go here. That's the sheet we just created, so I can go in there and I see everything that I need. So it's not as good as a training app, but it gives you a lot more flexibility to add sheets, change things that you want, and if you get pretty organized with your formulas and stuff, you can create something pretty solid to have all the videos there and not be constrained by the apps. Because I've gone through different apps over time, and there was always one or two functionalities that were missing for me in what I wanted to do. And in the end, I always came back to my sheet and updated it. For example, that's just a calendar that I set up with some conditional formatting, so people can, for example, they can say, okay, on this day, I'm gonna program day 1, strength 1. Here I'm gonna do
for their own sessions.
Strength 3, and they can say they've scheduled it, and it turns it in a different color. And then once they've completed it, then they can just click completed, and it turns it green. And then at the end, it counts your stats for the month, how many you've completed, how many you've skipped if you were sick. So it's pretty simple, but if you want, if people want to, if you want to make sure that your clients track what they do, and then you can keep an eye on it as well, it's pretty useful.
This is a good way, yeah.
So here you go. That was the main part.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem.